Welcome everyone to this webinar on modernizing your industrial data historian with AWS. My name is Shalika Pargal and I will be presenting this webinar with my colleague David Castro as we walk through how we use AWS services to enable customers to modernize their industrial data historian. In today's agenda, we will cover some of the drivers and trends we see as customers modernize their industrial operations. We will then talk about how AWS services can help customers through this journey of modernization of both their operations as well as their historians. And then we will walk through some of the customer stories and provide some resources to help you get started. And we will follow that up with a Q&A. To get us started, let me introduce myself. My name is Shalika Pargal. I am the Senior Worldwide Go-to-Market Lead for Industrial IoT and Edge Services in Energy. I work closely with energy customers to understand their requirements in this space and work very closely with the services team to be able to shape the services based on the feedback we hear from customers. With that, let me hand over to my colleague, David Castro.
And hello, everyone. I'm David Castro. I'm a Principal Product Manager in AWS. I work in the industrial space, and I own services like IoT SiteWise, IoT Events, IoT Analytics. My team discovers and works with customers to find what are the use cases that they want to enable with their digital platforms. And we build SiteWise to enable some of the use cases we're going to be talking today, where customers want to migrate out of their historians and improve their operations.
The typical challenges that the customer and problems that the customers are facing and the ones that they ask us for help with are firstly lack of visibility into their operations. Today, plants have systems that provide alarms and alerts indicating that something is wrong. But this does not provide much insight into what exactly went wrong. For example, this is like your car check engine light. You know something is wrong, but you don't know what it is, or if you should take action immediately, or if you can wait for a day, a week, or a month. It is a piece of data that is not very actionable. Customers are looking for actionable insights. In addition to the lack of visibility into their operation, there is also a lot of daily firefighting. There is a lot of reactive work happening and is disjointed and typically leads to a lot of bottlenecks and downtimes. So for example, you might have a failure in a line at the plant site, which leads to a stoppage, but that also has downstream and upstream effects. Understanding what the impact of the stoppage across the operations in the factory is critical. Customers are looking for insights that are going to help them understand these such problems and identify ways to overcome these. In addition, we see customers are also faced with the challenge of wastage due to quality issues. That is a result of product recalls. They are looking for means to reduce their scrap rate, and they want us to be able to provide them options on how they can be more efficient with this process. This leads us into sustainability. Many of these customers operate in countries that have sustainability and energy saving goals that they need to abide by. So they need to have a better understanding of what is happening in their plants, how to optimize their operations so they are more energy efficient, and how can they increase the energy savings. Customers are telling us that about 5% optimization in their operations will save at least 20% in energy costs. And in fact, one of the customers that we will be talking about today, CCI, has actually attained this savings in their operations. The customers are constantly going through a lot of change and transformations. We see this quite often in the oil and gas industry. As a result of many mergers and acquisitions, the customers inherit disparate data systems and operational technologies that are now sitting in siloed databases. The challenge then becomes for a customer how to bring all these different data sources together at an enterprise level so they can learn the best practices from each of these plants and then apply it across every organization. To address these problems, the customers are focusing around Industry 4.0 use cases. The first is around operational efficiency. They want to lower the cost of managing the assets, but also increase productivity. They can do this through a better understanding of the real-time performance of the equipment, understanding of the root cause of failure that occurs in their plants, and then being able to compare the performance of lines and plants against that at an enterprise level. And all this can only be done once data is brought into the system at an enterprise level. Customers are looking to move into predictive and preventative maintenance mode so they can prevent failures before they occur by either using machine learning models or using other advanced analytics to help them understand when a potential failure is going to take place, taking into account the condition of the asset at the moment, the real time monitoring of the asset, as well as using data from the asset to decide whether the asset needs to be replaced or is just needs to be maintained. In addition to that, the customers are looking to reduce their scrap freight and reduce the warranty claims, which is a very big issue, especially in the automotive industry. They want to understand how they can use visual inspection, especially using machine learning vision models that can help detect defects in the manufacturing process and help them set up anomalies and alarms that allow operators to take proactive actions. Today's world, energy consumption and water consumption is a critical metric that companies track. They need to understand the energy consumption and water consumption to be able to put together plans to improve those, and those are typically done by running machines more efficiently. As you can see in all these use cases, data is a key enabler for all of the four use cases mentioned here. Bringing together siloed disparate data sources at the enterprise level is critical and to be able to achieve these use cases. So how do we gain insights from the data that we have collected?
We've been working along the side of multiple customers that want to transform their manufacturing by enabling cloud capabilities for their digital factories. These customers are suffering from distributed and heterogeneous environments made of complex arrangements of assets, industrial systems, and manufacturing processes. In this diagram here, we are showing an example of that distributed environment where they have different SCADA systems or historians. They have different machines in each of those sites, and it's hard for them to make sense of all these different arrangements and extract insights that can be reduced across different sites. In today's webinar, we're going to be showing you how some of the AWS technologies that we're building are helping these customers to address those challenges, and how AWS IoT SiteWise, along with other AWS services, are being used to replace some of these historians that they have at the edge for a cloud historian that can provide more insights and from a single place. IoT SiteWise is used today by customers for multiple use cases, including cases for remote monitoring of multiple sites from a central location in the cloud, use cases to compute industrial business KPIs, or use cases to compute insights using advanced data analytics to predict, for example, asset performance and to achieve better manufacturing outcomes. So why are our customers considering to use the cloud and services like SiteWise to move out their current capabilities and current historians? Well, for once, they're thinking about cost. Using AWS services like SiteWise doesn't require a large capital investment upfront. And so it makes it very easy for them to enable and to start gaining value from their IoT initiatives fast without requiring those large investments. Using AWS IoT SiteWise is also a scalable approach to address your IoT challenges. You can start with one plant and scale in the usage of SiteWise as your business evolves, and deploy rapidly to support hundreds or thousands of assets. It is also more accessible. SiteWise provides capabilities to gain access to data in the cloud and at the edge, which is where, so we make data available wherever your operators and IT teams need it. Data SiteWise architecture is an open architecture, which also makes available data for other services in AWS, so you can gain more benefit and extract more insights from it easily. Maintenance is also better than with your on-premise systems. Your teams don't have to deal with the complexity of legacy infrastructure or updating servers or buying redundant infrastructure. SiteWise takes care of all the problems of patching, upgrading, and keeping your systems running at all times. Once data is in SiteWise, you also get access to an array of capabilities in AWS or applications for third parties. You can create your own applications on top of this data to extract value from it. And finally, this approach to the cloud and IoT SiteWise makes your data available for more advanced analytics. You can use services such as SageMaker or Lookup for Equipment to gain insights that are not possible at the edge or with smaller sets of data. So how is AWS enabling this modernization, and what is IoT SiteWise? AWS IoT SiteWise is a managed service that makes it easy to collect, organize, and analyze data from industrial equipment at scale. In this diagram, you can see how SiteWise helps you to connect to your industrial equipment, data servers, and historian databases on the left, and extract value from those systems by collecting, adding context, and extracting information from your data. We will be talking about each of these capabilities in a bit more detail. They are great building blocks that our customers are using to modernize their historians. Once data is in SiteWise, you can extract it to enable industrial applications. Those applications help our customers to achieve tasks such as monitoring their assets, scaling their maintenance operations, and measuring their performance. In this diagram, you can also see SiteWise Edge. SiteWise Edge extends the capabilities of SiteWise to the edge, and is a great companion to SiteWise in the cloud. With SiteWise Edge, you can seamlessly connect to industrial equipment, filter and compute data at the edge, and ingest to the cloud only the data that is useful for your cloud applications. Okay, now we're going to talk in more detail about 4 capabilities in IoT SiteWise that enable the modernization of historians. Data ingestion, a unified asset model, the ability to store your data, and the ability to make it available to industrial applications.
On SiteWise Edge and data ingestion. So SiteWise Edge really simplifies the ingestion of data from your plant systems. One of the key things about SiteWise Edge is it uses modern protocols like OPC UA to actually access the data from your plant systems. Typically, a plant system will talk to a historian or a PLC or a SCADA system, and using OPC UA, we can connect to these systems via an OPC server and make it available either in the cloud or make it available on the edge. SiteWise Edge supports multiple protocols. Like I mentioned, OPC UA is one of the key protocols that it supports. It also supports MQTT, Ethernet IP, and Modbus. And for other protocols which are required by customers, we have partner applications that can be connected to these devices to bring in the data into either SiteWise Edge or into the cloud. So one of the key features about SiteWise Edge, other than just simplifying the access to that data and bringing it for more advanced analytics, is we also allow it to bring information that you need. So you can set up filters and only bring in data that's important to you for monitoring and for those advanced analytics. One thing that we hear from customers is that how do I get rid of the noise in the data versus what's real? And that's very important. Using configuration and no code within SiteWise Edge, we can allow you to do that. It does 2 things. One is it reduces the amount of signal that you have available to use to the only the ones that are relevant, and use that and create that are needed to implement your business case. Secondly, It also optimizes your cost in the cloud rather than having data sitting in hot storage in SiteWise, which at some point could increase your costs. And so now you can only bring in what is relevant to the cloud and to build out your specific use cases. One of the key features of around SiteWise Edge is the centrally managed edge gateway. As you deploy gateways into multiple plants, you want to be able to manage those through a central location. So it's easier to be able to do software or firmware upgrades as required, and to make sure that any kind of configuration that you have around assets are deployed uniformly across your enterprise, and you're not having to go and individually deploy them on each of the plants. So central management is a very big part of any operations and any architecture that is used in such scenarios. Going back to the diagram we shared earlier, we looked at those disparate plants that have different systems and different equipment and within them, as well as the different PLCs. But now as we see this grow, we can see that we've got site-wise edge sitting on each of these sites where they're collecting data from these different disparate systems. We have different asset hierarchies as well. By taking the data, and we can now consolidate all these different asset hierarchies and the data that's associated with it in SiteWise in the cloud. As we bring more plants in, you can replicate the model for each of these plants. So it allows you for easy scalability and ability to templatize, so you can democratize the data easily. So when you bring data into the cloud, there are two things we need to do. We want to make sure it is represented in a way that your operator understands the data. And secondly, we want to be able to define metrics and measurements that are associated with these assets. So for example, on this slide, we talk about the stamping press. There are certain pieces of information which are associated and which make this stamping press unique. It could be the model number of the press, it could be the firmware that it is running, as well as any description that is associated with it. Then on top of that, we also have measurements. The typical measurements are the data signals that you bring in to augment these assets. For example, for the stamping press, this could be the pressure or it could be the flow. It depends on what kind of system you have. The data, or you could be monitoring something like the idle time, whether it is running or it is off. Uh, the third thing that we have is formula-based metrics for asset models. So for example, if you want to understand what's the efficiency of this machine or how long it has been running, for such things or the idle time around this machine, you can create your own formulas and your own metrics based on these formulas that are associated with that model. These formulas that are created will carry through when we do real-time monitoring of these assets as well. In addition to this, when you have one of these assets you have identified, you can actually replicate the assets throughout the hierarchy. So you don't have to recreate these assets each time you need it. Instead, you will be able to replicate and be able to automate some of this process. Here is an example of how you can bring all the asset data together from across siloed data sources. So if you look here, we have disparate data systems. We've got data coming from a SCADA system as well as a historian. As we bring it into SiteWise, we can start developing that model based on the information that's at the plant and the view that each plant operator sees. As you can see on the right-hand side, in SiteWise, we have the different sites represented and the assets in each of these sites. So if you have multiple sites, multiple plants, and the data that you see across the enterprise will be visualized the way that the plant operator for those plants wants to see it. In addition, if you wanted to have standardized asset models that's uniform across those assets, for example, in the building industry, you have the business information model, the BIM model, which is pretty standard. You can bring in the model and the data associated with it to be able to monitor those in SiteWise. So these bringing in all this data and being able to see your assets is kind of very key for remote operations when you're trying to get a single uniform view across all your assets.
Okay, once you have created that unified asset model that allows you to understand and control and view every asset in your factory floor, you need to now start ingesting your data. And SiteWise stores data in the most cost efficient way for you. So it can be used for both near real time monitoring use cases and for BI analytics. SiteWise then provides APIs that serve different use cases. So you can build the applications that you need. Data is stored in a scalable and performant data store. So your company never has to deal with the complexities of scaling servers, buying expensive hardware that is not fully utilized, indexing data for different use cases, or managing data for disaster recovery. From our hot tier, our customers can, for example, build applications where they can visualize a trend of their sensor data from a web application hosted in the cloud. These are applications that need fast access to data. So the hot tier provides a very low latency response. From our cold tier, our customers are running more advanced analytics to extract insights. For example, they're using applied machine learning with AWS Lookup for Equipment, where they use sensor data to detect anomalies that may be an indication of issues with their equipment. They also run advanced analytics to root cause issues and to make changes to their processes to gradually improve the performance of their operations. SiteWise cold tier is tightly integrated to S3. We basically put all your data that is cold into an S3 bucket in your account. And so it can be immediately integrated to the rest of your industrial data lake. And that enables is a bunch of other use cases where customers can start using Athena or QuickSight, and you can give access to data scientists and research engineers so they can browse through this data to extract more insights or create dashboards that are useful to drive your business. So now this is how our use case is evolving. We started from these different sites that are disparate, and now we enable them with SiteWise Edge, which is going to start ingesting data to the cloud. Now we know that SiteWise ingests that data and models it with the asset models and stores that data in a time series optimized database. And finally, data is integrated to your industrial S3 data lake. So you can enable other applications that have to do with BI analytics and research. The fourth capability in SiteWise that enables historian modernizations is the different APIs that we provide to retrieve data. You can retrieve data from SiteWise using a set of APIs that include our APIs to retrieve data in batch, APIs to retrieve interpolated data, or APIs to simply retrieve asset attributes and aggregates from your data. Or you can use our MQTT connection and subscribe to data that is ingested into SiteWise to, for example, run streaming analytics from a Lambda function. With these different APIs, our customers are building applications for real-time monitoring, where they can see how their sensor data moves over time. They can create alarms on top of their data, run advanced analytics applications, connect their data to SageMaker, to look up for equipment, and more.
Let's see how this fits into the industrial landscape. So when we start looking at the whole vision of modernizing your historian, we really need to look at it in terms of how a plant actually operates. So if you want to bring everything together, as we have been describing, level 0, you've got your equipment. Level 1, or the OT network, or what we call the process control network, is where you have your PLCs that actually control the machines themselves. Then what we do is we bring the data from these machines and PLCs into SiteWise Edge. SiteWise Edge allows you to do two things. One, it's the connector that brings data into the cloud, that is level 3, as we've been describing, but it also allows you to do local processing. So for example, if you need to do near real-time dashboards for your operators, you could use SiteWise Edge data processing to actually visualize that data. Then additionally, because we can connect to SCADA systems and historians, we can bring these data through either a partner solution or through SiteWise Edge. And that data can then also be sent up to the cloud into your SiteWise or into your industrial data lake as the need be. And this is important because when you get into that cloud, you now have modeled assets. You can look for specific performance for an asset or a plant site or assessment across the enterprise. Then you also have the data stored, making it easier for you to run advanced analytics. And then what our customers typically want to do is not only monitor their real time their assets, but they also want to be able to use advanced analytics. They are running machine learning models like what you see, look out for equipment, look out for metrics on top of the data that has already been collected. But on top of that, we have a number of partners that have built applications that sit on top of SiteWise as well. So we are now opening up this kind of an open architecture, making it available for ISVs to come and build their application. So for example, we have managed Grafana service that sits on top of SiteWise. We have partners like Software AG and Seek who have integrations with SiteWise to be able to use the SiteWise data to build analytics. We have built advanced analytics solution on top of the data that sits on SiteWise. So now you have the option to either build your own or to buy a solution from a partner, which is both available so that you can get more insights from the data that you have brought into the industrial data lake and into SiteWise. So where is AWS today? As we've been talking so far, we once the data is brought into the industry, brought into AWS cloud or brought into SiteWise, there are tremendous possibilities for customers to build off using the data. They can leverage a lot of our industrial services that have purpose-built services that have been that are focused on helping customers get insights from this data that has been collected. We have had a few services like IoT SiteWise, Greengrass, Lookout for Equipment, which is focused around finding abnormal behavior in industrial data, Lookout for Vision, which is focused on looking at vision data to be able to identify anomalies in the visual data so that we can identify defects ahead of time. So many of these purpose-built services we've had gone through this journey. We have many customers using these services, and we continue to add more to our portfolio in the industrial space. For example, TwinMaker, IoT TwinMaker, which is optimizes operations by providing an easy way to create operational digital twins, was launched in April. This is one of the newer services that we have added to our industrial portfolio, and we will continue to build adding new features as well as adding new functionality to these existing services. So let's look at some of our customers and how they have been using our solution. So the customer we want to focus in on today is Coca-Cola I-Tech, or CCI as they are known. CCI wants to build a digital operating system for their supply chain. Today, CCI is one of the major bottlers in the Coca-Cola system. They supply drinks to 4 million consumers, primarily in the Central Europe, Asia, and Middle East. And they are looking on options on how they can expand their business, how can they add more support and services and grow their customer base, as well as how can they improve the sustainability of their plants, specifically in areas where they operate where electricity is extremely expensive and sometimes scarce. Also, water is a challenge in some of the areas that they operate. They implemented their first use case, which is called clean in place process, which allows them to clean all their mixers, their lines, and everything that goes into creating a bottle of Coca-Cola, and making sure that they can do it efficiently by ways of using and implementing SiteWise in this process, the cleaning in place process. Using SiteWise, they have realized 20% energy saving annually as well as 9% saving on water annually. And in addition to that, they also estimate they have actually gained 34 days of processing time, as each of the clean in place process takes 3 to 4 hours to operate and actually run. They can optimize that and gain more processing time across all their plants. Today, they have got this implemented at 4 plants and in 8 production lines. And over the next 2 years, they expect to roll this to over 26 plants. So with that, how do you get started? We have a lot of different resources available for people looking to get started. Some of the technical resources are user guides, workshops, and demos that are available. And there are some free trials available for our services, which you can go and experiment and play around with the services to get a feel for the services. In addition to that, please reach out to your account managers, solution architects, and ask them to help you develop your historian in the cloud. With that, I will open the floor for questions.